Hi, this is John with John's Workshop, and welcome to the second part of this series trying to get this 2008 GL550 up and running again. So we found in the previous part we got a bunch of water leaks in there and a bunch of bad electronic modules. So in this part we're going to look at trying to figure out where are these leaks coming from and what are we going to be able to do about that. And since we know the leaks are coming from up above, the first step is to pull the headliner out. And it may seem pretty major, but I don't think it's going to be that bad. I watched a video. I'll put a link down below so you can see it's a step-by-step process for how to pull the headliner out of a GL550 or 450. So I'm going to start following that process and work to get that headliner out of here so we can see where those leaks might be coming from. Okay, I've got the first part done. We've got the plastic pieces removed around the rear view mirror. And now this is out. You can see there are all the connections. Right, the top unit here is out. See, there's some light bulbs in there. Hopefully those are good. We'll check those. And then here are the connections hanging there. I've been following the video about how to take the headliner out, and I'm getting pretty close. Got most of the things that they say out, and you can see in the back here, got most of the trim pieces out. Here's what the other side looks like. It goes a lot slower than in the video. He just shows things popping apart, and I guess I'm afraid to pull on some of this plastic that hard, so I'm taking my time and making sure nothing gets broken or damaged, but that's where I'm at right now. Not much more to go. Gotta cut some wire ties here and disconnect some wires, and then I think we're about ready to pull out the headliner. The wire ties they're talking about just keeps this cabling coming, that all this stuff goes to the headliner, and just keeping it kind of out of the way here. So we're gonna cut those off and get the wire harness free. And this wire tie down here also gets cut off. So these power wires right here, they get disconnected. And this wire goes over here and gets disconnected here. Well, this was the hardest part of the whole job. So we're looking at the front of the headliner, and right in here, this is the hardest part of the whole job, is that is the clip that's holding the headliner up there. So you can see here, right where my finger is there, that's what's holding the headliner on the front of the sunroof. And there it is again. So you actually have to kind of get under the sunroof, or you have to get underneath, and I used this tool here. And you kind of have to pull it back like this to get that to loosen up. And I was actually pushing up under here a little bit at the same time. Once you get the first part of it, then the rest of it you get the feel for how to get the other ones. But there's three of those, one in the center and one on either side, like that, that's holding it. Here's a good view of that forward part of the sunroof with those three catches that hold the top of the headliner. And you can see here where they were. So here's the air conditioning duct, and this clip right here is the one that we need to get out. So I just got one of those plastic tools, pushed it over to the right, and it is now disconnected. I'd also disconnected these things here, which I didn't really need to do. So here is the headliner out of the car. This is the back part, and here's the Velcro retainers there and there, and then Here you can see the Velcro's missing because it's hooked to the top. Same with over there. Here's this little retaining thing that holds the air conditioning. And then this is the back part of the sunroof. This hooks into that little slot back here. And then there's the front. You can see this was 1, 2, 3, those spots that held the front of the sunroof on. Hey, now that the headliner is out, as you can see here, now we can look up here and see about the leaks. So, how about that? Think that might have something to do with the leaks? I don't know what happened there, but that is totally leaking. It's not even connected. Well, now the M5 is relegated to headliner holding duty. There it is, but well protected. I thought maybe I might have bumped that hose off while I was taking the headliner out, but this is the A-pillar from that side. And if you look closely here, you see there's a track down through here that looks dirty. Right there, where the water would have been running down through. And if you look at the one on the other side, no track like that. So that really does appear to be at least one source of the water. Down here behind the rear wheel on the left-hand side, it still looks a little wet. Feels a little wet in here. So I think we still have some source of leakage coming in here. We're gonna have to figure this out. This stuff's pretty gross in here. I moved the wires out of there. We're gonna have to pull that out and do some cleanup work. Here's what that piece of insulation looks like. It's really just sound deadening insulation, but boy, it is full of mold. So luckily that whole thing is out of there. Okay, if I remove the duct for the air conditioning up here, there's another source of leak right up here. You can kind of see it here in the corner. Here you can see it's kind of wet there. So that is the other source of leak. This is the air conditioning duct on the roof, and you can see right here where the drips were occurring, and then they could run, looks like maybe either way, but definitely significant history of drips hitting that duct and then kind of running around there. And this, I guess it's antennas up here. That's going to have to come out too, because this is the actual roof. And it's glued here like that. Basically this roof panel goes all the way to the very end, which means we have to be able to get that wire to be able to cut through all that stuff. So there's much more stuff that's going to have to come out. Got the satellite antennas out of here. The hardest part of that was just getting the connectors undone. You can see there's a bunch of connectors here. But take your time. You can do that without breaking anything. The antennas themselves are here. This is the way they face like this when they're installed in the car. Kind of interesting to see what we've got in here. Looks like some pretty complicated stuff, and I'm not exactly sure what this does. So some of this might be GPS antenna, some of this might be Sirius satellite radio. I'm not exactly sure, but this has got to come out in order to get to be able to cut this roof out. The next step is to take this sunroof blind out, and it could slide laterally back and forth. You kind of had to do that and pull one of the end pieces out on the right hand side all at the same time. Well, I got this out more or less according to the instructions, but I've got this paper clip here trying to hold this from spinning, so it's keeping this from spinning out of here. But also this shaft wants to push out this way. So this paper clip is kind of holding it from doing both of those things until we can get this thing back in there. So I guess that's the purpose of they call it like a fusible link or something like that. But anyways, so these little guys on the corners, the edges there, slide into the track right up there. And in order to get those out, I had to take these little guys out of this little area here. So I think I'm actually going to put this back in here. See, it goes right there, so I don't lose it. Like that. And then over here, same thing. Put that back in there, just like that. So they'll be there when we go to install this again. The next step is to pull these plastic covers off of the end of the car, giving you access up above to the underside of the plexiglass moonroof. To do this, you don't have to pull the bumper all the way off, but you do have to slide it back. I pulled it all the way off because I needed to get to the back side to be able to fix or to push forward that one Parktronic sensor that was shoved in. So now the bumper, rear bumper, needs to come off. So there's a couple of these little plastic connectors here. There's a bolt up here. There's actually another video online that does a good job of talking about what the connections are. So you've got those same both sides, and we also have some fasteners under here. This one here and this one here. Those will come off both sides, and then there's a few more bolts. And there's a bolt here on both sides that also needs to come out. Then from inside the car, down in this hole, there is a 10mm. So here's that location of that 10mm right here. So that's going to come out. And that's what it looks like. And then the last bolt is right here, 10mm again. And then we should free up the bumper. All right, so the rear bumper is off. What I ended up doing here is just disconnecting each one of the Parktronic sensors. But now we can get to the back here. I can fix the Parktronic sensor, which is here. And one of these was, yeah, see this? This was like punched out here. So hopefully get that back in the right place and held in there, just like these other ones. Let's see, not really showing you one. There we go. There's the other one, and one there. A lot of dirt in here. While I'm under here and have the bumper off, I'm just gonna go ahead and take this plastic cover off because I noticed like there might be a little bit of nesting material coming out of here, and I want to make sure that our reservoirs here for compressed air for Airmatic are okay and not chewed through. Well, there wasn't actually a nest in there so much as just a ton of junk down in there. And here are the reservoirs. They actually look pretty good. I was worried maybe somebody was chewing on those, but looks good. And here's the other side. Well, it doesn't look too bad, actually. I'm gonna clean that up a little bit just to make me feel better. So the pressure switch on this back panel, you disconnect right here. This was connection here, and then this part is going to go out through here, and you can see this is where it comes out right here. So that's what it looks like. And so this is out now, out of the way. A lot of pollen on there. So we can get to the window here, or the roof, the sunroof. So the cutter has to be able to get into there and cut that out. Okay, I got the other side off here. I had to have a helper hold this tailgate up because you have to pull these bolts off here. The strut comes off and you got to get it around this thing right here. So this is the actual actuation mechanism. These are the gas charged struts that just hold it up. And you can see, boy, there's a bunch of junk in there that gonna get cleaned out too. But at this point, it should be pretty much ready to take this moonroof off. So here you can see that moonroof. It's pretty much the entire roof going all the way back to the end where the tailgate starts, and that is going to have to be removed in order to be resealed. Here's an excerpt out of the work instructions from Mercedes showing the cuts that need to be made in that rubber urethane bonding material. To get the moonroof off, the rubber seals have to be cut. So I ordered this wire cutting tool that you can use to cut windshields out and thought I would give that a try. Well, I started cutting this right here. So I put the wire through. I was able to thread it through here without using the poker, but boy, this is some slow going. I'm getting a real workout and I've only maybe cut an inch at the most. Well, this is what this cutting is like. You've got to hold these wires all the way up at the top, like this. And that's probably about 60 pounds of pull to get that to move, and I'm just wearing myself out here trying to cut this one beat. So I'm thinking about, it could be another approach. Plan B is to try using the saw blade to see if we can cut into this plastic up here. So I'm going to see what we can do. Well, it became pretty clear that this technique was not going to work, to just try to locally cut that rubber out and then reseal it right there. That rubber is just too tough and too deep in there for this to be a practical way to go. Well, taking care of the moonroof leak up here is proving more difficult than I thought. So I'm on to plan C. I try to get a hold of the local dealer here in St. Louis to have their glass person do it. So they sent me to their glass person. The glass person said they weren't interested in doing it, but to call another place, the Plaza Collision. So I called Plaza Collision and they sent me right back to that same glass place. So really couldn't find anybody here in the St. Louis area that would do this. However, Chris found somebody up in Springfield who's worked on some of the Rolls-Royce windshields, and that guy is willing to give this a try. So that's plan C, is to have them cut this out and reseal it and hopefully not damage it while they're doing the cutting out part. So I'm getting it ready to ship up to Springfield so we can get that company to take a look at this and try to cut that roof out and reseal it. I'm in the final stages of getting ready to be able to have this moonroof cut out. So I'm in here with the airbag. I'm gonna pull this bracket down out of the way that allows you to get to the 4 bolts that hold this plate up here, because that is obscuring one of the bolts that holds the roof rack on, and you got to be able to get to that. So just got to pull this out of here and figure out how to get my ratchet up into there to get that bolt off. So it's really not too bad. You can just get your socket, 13 millimeter socket with the extension up here, and then I took the one out here. The folks at the glass shop will be able to then go up and get this one here. So for the very front one, you can just get in here without moving this out of the way. You can just get in here with a box end wrench and get those off. So on this side, the roof rail, see it should be able to just pull this right out of here. There we go. So that's what it looks like under there. So with that out, you can see there's considerable grime and stuff that's actually gotten in there on the front one here. And here's a closer look at the middle one. You can see this is why it has to come out, because here's the plastic roof that's going to be removed. You can also see some of the weathering, like under that it was nice and smooth, but out here it's definitely degraded. But yeah, look at all this junk in here. Wow, so that's all going to get cleaned out. And then here's the rear one. Doesn't look much better. Once you get this loose on the driver's side, you can start to slide this duct around. You can see I've disconnected it from the outlet of the air conditioner, and you can start to slide it around to get it out of here. It looks like I'm probably going to have to take this piece off, and then it should just come right out the back. All right, that just slides right out the back, and then once that's out, you can get up here to get the roof rail bolt off. So for these aft ones, you can see just use a nice long extension bar and you can get right up in there. It's a 13 millimeter nut holding the bolt coming in from the rail. For the mid mounts, I'm using a universal there just because I don't have the airbag completely out of the way, but I can get in here good enough to both of these nuts that way. Got the rails off, but in order to make sure we don't get rain in there, I've got blue tape basically covering all the holes while the rails are out. Here's what it looks like without the roof rails on. Kind of looks like it got a haircut or something. Thanks for watching this episode. In a future episode, I'll show you what ends up happening up there in Springfield with the moonroof reseal, but the next episode, I'm going to focus on getting the air suspension up and running again. So thanks for watching.